Even in the darkest times as a litigator, there's an opportunity to find ways to take advantage of mistakes that are being made by your adversary and ultimately prevail. I think that applies here, Michael Popok, in the broader context of what's taking place in our nation. We have in Donald Trump, his pathology is wired and geared, I wouldn't even say so much to making fundamental mistakes. It is intrinsic to who he is. So it should not come as a surprise that after the election, Donald Trump has had, I think, probably the worst single week in transition history for a president-elect. I mean, Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, Tulsi Gabbard being appointed or nominated as the Director of National Intelligence, RFK Jr. at HHS, Kristi Noem as Homeland Security, some random guy named Peter Hegseth, who's a Fox Weekend host, to become Secretary of Defense. I think it is now critical to let the American people, as we were doing before, but right now with the chaos being caused, to know the stakes. So right now, for example, we have Republicans in Congress and many in the Senate who are quite literally covering up a report that may demonstrate that Donald Trump's Attorney General pick in Matt Gaetz is a pedo. That's right, covering up a report that would show that Matt Gaetz was having sex with underage girls and that there were witnesses to that taking place. And the entire Republican apparatus geared to covering that up. The same way Jim Jordan, when he was a wrestling coach at Ohio State, covered up sexual assault and sexual abuse there. I want to talk about that and more, the broader legal ramifications. I want to let people know what recess appointments are, what Donald Trump's going to try to do there. I want to talk about Donald Trump appointing his personal lawyers to key legal posts, whether it's in the Department of Justice or within the White House itself. And I want to give an update on the various Trump-related cases, what is happening there. But perhaps I'm a glass half full guy, Michael Popok, or perhaps it's the former litigator in me that's geared towards this. But I look for opportunity. I look for ways to lead in difficult times. And I look for ways to try to just demonstrate the reality of the situation where my opponents are making mistakes. Michael Popok, welcome.
Thank you. And when you're the one on this show that's the optimist, then we know we're moving in the right direction, because I get accused of being the purveyor of Popokium all the time. But you're exactly right. There's two ways to approach what's just happened, and they're both, you can see them as a gift, not the election results, but since then, what we can do with Donald Trump drunk with power, out of control, making mistakes already. We'll go over all the mistakes that he and his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, have made just in the last 72 hours, overplaying whatever hand they think that they were dealt, overplaying whatever landslide, which is not a landslide, they think that they obtained in their picks for the cabinet, how they've gone about selecting these people, the lack of vetting or FBI investigations about them, and how it is, we believe, potentially emboldening the Senate Republicans to peel away from the majority and make sure that the most extreme and obscenely unqualified of the picks, and I'm looking at you, Tulsi Gabbard, Pete Hegseth, Matt Gaetz, RFK Jr., that you don't get anywhere near confirmed. I feel that the recess option for appointment is fading into the distance. We'll talk about the senators on the Republican side who have all already declared their opposition to a plan like that. And I was also encouraged, we talked about it literally the next day after the election on both Legal AF YouTube channel and here on the main network, about the strategy of resistance is not abandonment and resignation. It is pushing forward. New York Times has a great article up right now about the anti-Trump battle plan that, frankly, attorney generals and governors in Democratic states have been working on for over a year. keeping it a little bit under wraps so as not to step on the Kamala Harris trying to run for president story. But they are ready with budgets, with lawsuits led by public interest groups like Democracy Forward with huge multi-million dollar war chests. They have the lawsuits at the ready. They're going to oppose, as we've said, the hundreds of executive orders that Donald Trump is going to use, because that intersection of law and politics that we founded this podcast and this brand on of Legal AF is going to be the most busy thoroughfare in our democracy over the next 4 years. Every one of those executive orders, and Donald Trump is going to try to push policy by executive order more than legislation in the MAGA House, because that always gets tied up in some issue like they don't have a large enough majority to shove these laws through. So he's going to try to rule by executive fiat. And that's where the lawsuits come in. 750 or more were filed in the first Trump administration. We expect double that number now, and we and our audience are here for it.
Talk about the intersection of law and politics. A lot of these nominees by Donald Trump, when you look into it, obviously, when it comes to the ethics investigation of Matt Gaetz potentially being a pedo, and potentially is doing a lot of work there. It's an obvious intersection of law and politics. But you talk about Peter Hegseth now with allegations against him for engaging in sexual assault from 2017 resurfacing. Hegseth denies the allegation. Hegseth, by the way, is on marriage number 3, cheated on wife 1 with wife 2, had a baby with wife 3 while married to wife 2. Wife 3 works for Fox. So the intersection of lawsuits, and these appointees, I think is a reflection as well of Donald Trump, who's always been embroiled in this type of conduct, engaging in this type of conduct. So we'll break all of that down. From a messaging standpoint, though, I do want to call out Democrats, though, who are still very process-based. Well, we think that the ethics report should be released of Matt Gaetz. Indeed, the ethics committee has thoroughly and meticulously engaged with witnesses, and we think that what would be most appropriate. All right, just say the ethics report, there's a report that Republicans are covering up that Trump's AG could be a pedo. Like, just say that. Like, why can't you say the American people should not have a pedo as an AG? Right? It's a pretty simple message. It's the truth. We all want to get out the truth. But the Democrats are still caught up, I think, in over-intellectualizing these things. So just call it out. We don't want a pedo as our AG. Like, pretty simple to say that. So let's show you what's going on this week. Get your take, Michael Popok. Just a reminder for everybody, Trump's nominees, technically nominees, the president selects his nominees. Then there's what's called an advice and consent function of the Senate, which means the Senate then is obligated under the Constitution to hold hearings to confirm or to not confirm these picks by Trump. You'll talk about Trump's end run around it, but just the quick review. I talked about it at the outset. Trump picked Matt Gaetz to be his AG. He picked Tulsi Gabbard, who many believe to be compromised by Russia because she parrots verbatim Russian talking points. She also went to meet with the dictator of Syria after he used chemical weapons against his own people to be the director of national intelligence, what he picked Tulsi for, giving her access to our most classified information. Speaking of which, give the nuclear codes to a random Fox News weekend host, the Fox and Friends weekend host, Peter Hegseth. Granted, he was in the military. He also, has this tattoo that many say is aligned with kind of a white nationalist tattoo. It's a lot of white nationalists have the tattoo. He says it's just a tattoo showing the crusades that took place, but whatever. Kristi Noem, who killed her dog Cricket, to become the Homeland Security Director. Tom Homan to be the border czar. By the way, with all of these people, no FBI, Donald Trump saying that he doesn't want the FBI to do any checks, no background checks, not looking into their qualifications, whether they can be compromised. So you have that right there. And then there's this issue, right? The Congress has been investigating Matt Gaetz potentially being a pedo from the lawyer of one of the women who was underage at the time. We believe there's credible information linking Matt Gaetz to underage sex or engaging in underage sex. There are witnesses to it, also drug use, rampant drug use, as well as obstruction of justice is what we expect is in this report. So Republicans, you want this report out there? Jim Jordan, who covered up sexual abuse at his previous job before being a member of Congress, here's what he says.
And Congressman Jordan, do you have any sense about what will happen with that House ethics report that was supposed to come out Friday? Remember, Gaetz had been accused of things and no prosecution had been continued. It had been dropped. But Dick Durbin's trying to get his hands on that report, obviously, to leak it out to hurt President Trump. What is your sense on that?
Well, it's my understanding that is not supposed to go public. So if it's not supposed to under the rules, it shouldn't go public. And what I know about Matt Gaetz is one of the best members we had on our committee. In my time in Congress, which has been a while, I don't know, there are very few people who have the cross-examination skills he does. And I want someone in the Justice Department who's not going to say moms and dads at school board meeting needs to be investigated. I want someone at the Justice Department who's going to say it's wrong for the FBI to do a memorandum and say that pro-life Catholics are extremists. I want someone at the Justice Department who can tell us who planted the pipe bombs on January 6th, who leaked the Dobbs opinion, who put cocaine at the White House instead of all the other stuff they seem to be focused on.
By the way, you notice what Jim Jordan's saying there, but also notice his messaging, right? Saying that the DOJ's going after pro-life Catholics and calling them extremists. That never happened. Okay, people who threatened to blow up schools with bombs got investigated. But notice how they message. Notice how Fox messages there as well. Dick Durbin, a Democrat, wants to hurt Donald Trump. No, we just don't want a freaking pedo to be the attorney general. And by the way, MAGA Mike Johnson, here's what he had to say. Let's play it.
I'm going to strongly request the Ethics Committee not to issue the report, because that is not the way we do things in the House, and I think that would be a terrible precedent.
For those listening on audio, MAGA Mike Johnson said, I am going to strongly request, as opposed to what, weakly request? I'm going to or mediocrely request. I'm going to strongly request that the Ethics Committee not release the report. So, Popok, let me throw it to you, because also, in addition to these very serious allegations, Matt Gaetz was never really even a practicing lawyer. I think the one case that he took, he sued an elderly woman in a debt collection case because she couldn't pay a home care firm that his dad happened to own. Like, that was like one of the two cases. He's never stepped foot in a trial. He's never zero qualifications for the job of attorney general. But also, I mean, look, we collectively should not be okay with having a pedo as the attorney general. The report should come. Why is this even a controversial thing?
And there's also a cover-up within the cover-up. It is obvious to me, based on the timing, that the House Ethics Committee that had worked 2 years on the investigation of Matt Gaetz, that elected to go forward with it even after the Biden Department of Justice had dropped the criminal investigation, presumably or purportedly because they got there's some issues with the victim, but the victim, who was underage, hence the pedo girl, when she was allegedly raped in a drug-fueled party. These are the allegations. By the way, they've not just been they're not just in the ethics investigation or the Department of Justice. You and I reported on a federal filing in a case down in Florida involving Joel Greenberg, who is the Matt Gaetz wingman, who they went away outside the country and brought these girls with them, who's serving 9 years in prison for these very same allegations, who's been ready, willing, and able to testify, and has testified to the House Ethics Committee about it. It showed up in a filing in a lawsuit that was brought related to these matters, in which Matt Gaetz was placed in the filing at a drug-fueled party filled with underage girls for sex. So we were not shocked when the House Ethics Committee, which is one of the only committees in Congress that is actually equally balanced, equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans, although chaired by a Republican. I am almost certain that the Republican chairperson tipped off Matt Gaetz about what was going to be in the report, which was going to be terrible against Matt Gaetz, and told him he should resign as a strategy to avoid its publication. Because 2 days before Matt Gaetz actually resigned from Congress, including the next Congress, he's done. This guy made it public, the chairperson. He said, well, we'll publish it on Friday unless Matt Gaetz has resigned by then. I was like, oh my God, 2 days later, or a day later, Matt Gaetz resigned. So I am sure there was a conversation. I'm pretty sure there was a conversation in which it was revealed to Matt Gaetz that he should really get out of Dodge and he should try to resign. This whole Jim Jordan and the Speaker of the House saying, oh, there's no more jurisdiction, it shouldn't be released. And as you said, kind of a line from, although I'm sure it was missed on him, A Few Good Men, I strongly object. Oh, well, as long as you strongly object, then that's different. All of that totally ignores the tradition and precedent of that committee to release reports even if the person has resigned or has no longer been returned to Congress. There's been two examples, one in 1987 and one in the 1990s, where they issued the report even though the person wasn't there. And now we have a special case because Donald Trump, in his infinite wisdom, has decided to nominate the person who is being accused of being a pedophile and a rapist to be the Attorney General of the United States, which now puts the total attention on the Republicans in the Senate, the most deliberative body that we've got going for us, where people have no term limits and are going to outlast Donald Trump by a lot. He's only in their mind a one-term president. And so the question is that 3 or so seat advantage is quickly going to evaporate because they are not going to support Matt Gaetz, and they're demanding that report be released for their confirmation purposes to the Senate Judiciary Committee. The current Senate Judiciary Committee, which is lame duck led by Democrats, is demanding it. But more importantly, Susan Collins has said she opposes the Matt Gaetz nomination. Lisa Murkowski, Alaska, same thing. Cornyn, who just barely missed being the Senate Majority Leader, which was not Donald Trump's choice. We'll talk about that later, and how Susie Wiles has already failed Donald Trump on numerous occasions. They are all arrayed against Donald Trump. That is almost enough to reduce the majority in the Senate in the new Congress to zero, to nothing. And meaning Gaetz will not have to go. My working theory has been this has all been a charade. Donald Trump, it's a two-step charade. Matt Gaetz resigns because he's going to try to stop the report from coming out. Although the other part of it is, then why would Donald Trump, in a split-second decision, which apparently is how he's making these decisions, with Boris Epshteyn, his closest attorney confidant that's been picking all of these legal positions. Apparently there was a plane ride in which the Trump whisperer, Boris Epshteyn, who is indicted, a lawyer, but indicted in Arizona for the election interference and fake electors scheme, and was an unindicted co-conspirator in the D.C. election case we'll talk about later. He whispered in his ear, Matt Gaetz. Susie Wiles, the chief of staff nominee, is nowhere to be found on the plane. By the time it lands, it's Matt Gaetz. So they didn't really think this through because they thought, well, we're going to bury the report over here, but it's going to be revived over there by the Senate, even the Republicans demanding its publication, its release to the public. I've always thought this was a major troll by Donald Trump. He knows he can't get the votes for Matt Gaetz. He doesn't have anybody in his administration, including Susie Wiles, to wrestle up these votes. Normally, that White House position is somebody who has deep relationships on Capitol Hill in the House and the Senate to go get these votes. She does not have that. And it's obvious she doesn't have that. And her number one pick to be the Senate Majority Leader was our old boss, Rick Scott, and he went down in flames by the Senate in the first round of voting. So he's got no friends, so to speak, in the Senate, not enough to confirm. And then what will he do? He'll just force Matt Gaetz into some other position that doesn't require Senate confirmation somewhere in the administration, promising him a job. Because as you said, he's a sort of a clueless bumbler of a lawyer. So like representing other MAGA interests in a Gaetz law firm, I don't think is going to work. So you have that. And then on top of it, you've got the other white nationalist / sex assault charge against Hegseth. You already gave his sordid background. And then you've got this 2017 charge in Northern California, and now he's being represented, talking about bringing us all home. He's represented by Tim Parlatore, who used to represent Donald Trump, but quit him after Mar-a-Lago raid happened. And so, the execution of the search warrant. So this is all, in my view, as I said at the top of today, a gift. And the gift to us is the more outrageous these picks are, the potential Russian foreign asset being named the head of national intelligence, the confessed drug addict and drug user RFK Jr. being nominated to head Health and Human Services as a former environmental lawyer with a drug problem, Pete Hegseth, who's got his long list of other problems. We haven't even touched on, although you showed the tattooed photo, where his allegiance really lies in America. And he's also the one leading the charge for the purge of the military of all the generals and colonels. That came out of the fevered imagination of Hegseth, which Trump adopted. And then you've got Matt Gaetz, the potential pedophile. This group, right, if they went through a proper vetting, would never survive. And now we got to leave it to the Senate to call these people out and get these four at least pulled as nominees or die in committee or on a floor vote in the Senate.
Look, what did Donald Trump promise that his presidency would be about? Retribution. So if you wanted to inflict retribution on America, on the different departments, how would you inflict retribution on the Department of Justice and career lawyers who work there? If Donald Trump believes they all screwed me by investigating me, put the least qualified individual who will torment them to be the leader with zero qualifications that basically would result in the DOJ being destroyed. Retribution. You pick Matt Gaetz. You hate your military. You hate your military generals. How do you get retribution? How do you screw the generals? How do you screw America's military? You pick a Fox News host, the weekend host, with a very, very, very suspicious background to run the Department of Defense. How do you screw over your national intelligence community if you want to inflict retribution on them? Because you believe that they connected you to Russia and you think Russia is a big hoax against you. Pick the person who many believe to be compromised by Russia to lead as the director of national intelligence. How do you screw over all of the people advocating for environmental changes who you believe harmed your interests? Well, pick RFK Jr. to run it as well. So these moves, if you think about it, are a deliverance of the promise of retribution. Just, I think it's logical but illogical, but think about his sicko mind and what he's doing here. When we get back, I want to talk Michael Popok about Donald Trump making his personal lawyers also top picks within his administration. And then I also want to talk about the status of his cases. Then I want to talk about something that's not really getting all that much coverage, but I think with our platform, we should give it coverage. A Trump-appointed judge in Texas recent ruling that banned President Biden's rule that would have given overtime pay to over 4 million Americans. Let's take our first quick break of the show.
I spend most of my day in front of a screen and a microphone. And this used to mean I spent a lot of my day sitting. The research on sitting for long periods has been linked with various conditions such as poor heart health, bad posture, diabetes, and the list goes on. This is why I love Uplift Desk and their ergonomic desks and chairs. A standing desk can help lower your risk of disease, improve your mood and focus, boost productivity, and increase your energy. I use my Uplift Desk every day. When I'm standing up thinking with a cup of joe about how to prepare for my next hot take or podcast episode, I'm not staring into space. It's my most productive ruminating and cogitating me time at my Uplift Desk. And only when I'm on my feet do my creative juices really start to flow. The option to move while I work promotes better circulation, which can reduce all types of different health risks and repetitive strains. Uplift Desk helps you build your custom dream desk by choosing from over 100 desktop choices and hundreds of accessories. Their desk configurator lets you build out a complete workstation with storage, seating, wire management. Listen, when I used it, I had my perfect dream standing desk that I've wanted for over 30 years configured in less than 10 minutes. I had loads of fun configuring my Uplift Desk, starting with picking my tabletop. I went with a beautiful walnut butcher block, added white legs and storage drawers, wheels for mobility, and a number of cool cable management and pop-up and power grommets for my perfect custom Uplift Desk. I especially like the different control options and memory settings that puts the desk at just the perfect height for me and lets my wife join in on the productive fun when she visits at the office too. We've got a special deal and it's exclusive to our audience. When you visit our link at upliftdesk.com/legalaf, you're gonna get 4 free accessories. Free same-day shipping, free returns with free shipping, and an industry-leading 15-year warranty that covers the entire desk, plus an extra discount off your entire order. That's upliftdesk.com/legalaf for a special offer, and it's only available at our link. Work better, live healthier with Uplift Desk. Did you know that 4 companies control over 80% of the U.S. meat industry? I had no idea. These companies are using mobster-like tactics to crush American family farms, and with the additives they're putting into our food, Americans are stuck with sketchy meat. And would it surprise you to know that 99% of the chicken, 95% of the pork, and 78% of cattle are raised in feedlot or confinement buildings? I was shocked. So what can we do about it? Let me tell you about a company that's coming up swinging on behalf of American family farms and your family's food security. Moink. Their farmers are given an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, and they deliver meat straight to your doorstep at prices you can actually afford. Keep American family farms farming by joining the Moink movement today at moinkbox.com/legalaf. Sign up today and get free hot rolls in your first order, spelled MOINK, box.com/legalaf. Oink, oink, get moinked. moinkbox.com/legalaf. Traditional bed sheets, they can harbor more bacteria than a toilet seat. It can lead to acne, allergies, and stuffy noses, and it's just gross. Miracle Made offers a whole line of self-cleaning, antibacterial bedding, such as sheets, pillowcases, and comforters that prevent up to 99.7% of bacteria growth and require up to 3 times less laundry. Using silver-infused fabrics inspired by NASA, Miracle Made sheets are thermoregulating and designed to keep you at the perfect temperature all night long, no matter the weather. So you get better sleep every night. Miracle sheets are luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands and feel as nice, if not nicer, than sheets used by some 5-star hotels. Stop sleeping on bacteria. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne. Sleep clean with Miracle. These sheets are infused with silver that prevent up to 99.7% of bacterial growth, leaving them to stay cleaner and fresh 3 times longer than other sheets. No more gross odors. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo, LegalAF at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/legalaf and use the code legalaf to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40% off. Again, that's trymiracle.com/legalaf to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
Welcome back to Legal AF. For those who have been watching now, Legal AF for many years, some of the Trump lawyer names are probably familiar to you. Emil Bove, Todd Blanche, John Sauer. I'm sure you've heard a bunch of those names before. Just to remind you, like John Sauer is an individual who was arguing on Trump's behalf before the United States Supreme Court that Trump should have absolute immunity. The Supreme Court gave Donald Trump absolute immunity to rule like a king, an authoritarian, a dictator. Apparently, to the United States Supreme Court's right wing, conservative means conserving the monarchy, not actually conserving our Constitution. Who would have thought that that's what they meant by conservative? I guess some people would have warned you of that. But during oral argument, one of the judges who was appointed, Supreme Court justices who was appointed by former President Barack Obama, wanted to explore the contours of what Trump's lawyer was arguing about absolute immunity. That lawyer, John Sauer, who Trump just appointed as basically one of the top 3 positions in the Department of Justice, which is called the Solicitor General, the position that argues before the Supreme Court on behalf of the Trump administration. Todd Blanche and Emil Bove got senior positions in the Trump administration as well that Popok will talk to you about. But I want you to hear this exchange just to remind you about what John Sauer, Trump's lawyer, argued about absolute immunity. And after hearing this argument, the right-wing justices said, yes, John Sauer, you are right. This is the power that Trump gets. Here, play this clip.
But it has to be proven. Malum in se is a concept long viewed as appropriate in law, that there's some things that are so fundamentally evil that they have to be protected against. Now, I think, and your answer below, I'm going to give you a chance to say, if you stay by it, if the president decides that his rival is a corrupt person and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him, is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
It would depend on the hypothetical, but we can see that could well be an official act.
It could, and why? Because he's doing it for personal reasons. He's not doing it like President Obama is alleged to have done it, to protect the country from a terrorist. He's doing it for personal gain. And isn't that the nature of the allegations here? That he's not doing these acts in furtherance of an official responsibility. He's doing it for personal gain.
I agree with that characterization of the indictment, and that confirms immunity, because the characterization is that there's a series of official acts that were done for an unlawful.
No, because immunity says even if you did it for personal gain, we won't hold you responsible. How could that be?
That's an extremely strong doctrine in this court's case law in cases like Fitzgerald.
Well, we go
Johnson,
back to Justice Thomas's question.
So, Michael Popok, you heard there, Trump's lawyer argued, yes, it's an official core constitutional function. You should get immunity for that. And the right-wing justices said that you should get immunity to order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate political rivals.
Yeah, so first of all, that just reinforces for me anybody that was trying to push Sotomayor out the door and let Joe Biden in the last remaining days try to put somebody in there else. That's not the Senate. The lame duck senators don't have any will to do that. And so that'll just be a screw up. She'll resign and he won't be able to fill. So she needs to sit right where she is. She's one of the intellectual heavyweights for the progressive and free thinking side of the Supreme Court. And we can't lose Sotomayor at this time. That whole exchange came out of, as you referenced, an exchange in the lower court, the DC Court of Appeals, led by Judge Florence Pan. the now infamous SEAL Team 6 question, where you and I listened to that. We were texting each other at that moment. We were like, oh, that's the end of the case for the Trump administration, mainly because John Sauer had taken it to the extreme, and he was so unwavering and doubling down in his position as to lose credibility. He certainly did it at the D.C. Court of Appeals level when she posited Judge Pan, picked up here by Judge Sotomayor, what if the president, as commander-in-chief, ordered SEAL Team 6 to take out a political rival? That's what Sotomayor said, I want to see if you're going to maintain your position that you did below. That's what she's referring to. John Sauer, just so you know where he's coming from, he is a anti-abortion attorney whose entire career has been spent trying to take away a woman's right to choose, funded primarily by a combination of the Koch brothers and a Leonard Leo Federalist Society pick. He had been the Missouri Attorney General, taken some extreme positions then. Now, that is why he was picked to be the appellate lawyer. Apparently, all of these criminal lawyers for Donald Trump, criminal defense lawyers for Donald Trump, were put together by Boris Epshteyn. We're going to talk about him later in the podcast. And John Sauer was one of them, replacing a revolving door of other appellate lawyers and people that were not very successful before appellate courts, including Alina Habba. John Sauer's got the credentials on paper. Look, he clerked for Judge Luttig, a friend of the podcast. I've interviewed Judge Luttig a half a dozen times. I've spoken to him about John Sauer. He said John was a brilliant mind, somebody that he was a very good law clerk and knows his way around the arguments at the Supreme Court, has argued there a number of times. He clerked for Antonin Scalia, who's one of the poster boys of the Federalist Society movement. So I know why he was nominated. But John has this nagging little habit of taking things that as you just heard, to the absolute extreme and not willing to bend an inch in his position. And while that was effective, and let's give credit where credit is due, he won two major decisions for Donald Trump. He won the Colorado decision, in which he argued that the 14th Amendment disqualification for insurrectionist clause could not be applied at the state level for a federal election. And he got an 8-1 vote on that. It may have been 9-0 on the things that mattered. And that's why, even though we keep talking about, what about the 14th Amendment insurrectionist clause? He made an argument that resonated with not just the MAGA right wing of the court. And then we fast forward several months later when he argued in April of last year the immunity decision, which ended up going almost completely in Donald Trump's favor. But John Sauer kind of let loose as the Solicitor General, representing all the interest in the position of the United States of America, is quite different than just being Donald Trump's lawyers. Now, look, he'll always resonate with Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas. The question is, will his consistently extreme positions, and you can see it here, and an often confusing way of arguing, will wear on the court. It's one thing to appear once in a while in front of the court. And John has another habit, which I think is grating, grating, grating on people, including the appellate judges who listen to him, which is he tries to pack into a sentence about 1,000 or more words. He tries, and it's fatiguing. It's also wearing on appellate judges. And he's been told to slow down, calm down, answer the question. I've heard that over and over again. When he's appearing, not just in randomly, but every week before the Supreme Court, what we want to try to do, if we're on the other side of the arguments, is aim for Amy Coney Barrett, who, yes, she sided with the majority in this, but I think she's not one that likes to be dragged to the most extreme positions like SEAL Team 6 or selling. The other thing that came up that we didn't talk about here, but just remind people, Gorsuch and others posited, well, would he be able as president, since his core constitutional right and power is to issue pardons, could he sell those pardons? Could he self-pardon? I mean, that all came up in the argument too, and John Sauer took a typical John Sauer position. So what I'm hoping is by having somebody who's often considered to be the 10th justice of the United States Supreme Court, that's how much respect that position is given, that he will abuse it relatively quickly and wear out his welcome. And that will help, which is the only thing that we have a hope for the next 4 years, is that we can get Amy Coney Barrett and occasionally Roberts to move over to the logical side, the reasonable side, and join the three on the left, so to speak, or center, and on things that matter in opposing future Trump policy. We know this guy is going to go to the extreme every time and not give an inch. That doesn't always work, especially when it's 10 times a week at the United States Supreme Court. But to answer the question in the chat, John Sauer is going to get confirmed. And if you were wondering about, Todd Blanche, who was the most successful criminal defense lawyer for Donald Trump in his roster of revolving door criminal defense lawyers, which number almost a dozen starting at the beginning of the prosecutions, but landed on Todd Blanche and Emile Beauvais, his associate / partner. They have all been rewarded with deputy general counsel, which is now occupied by Lisa Monaco for Merrick Garland, and a first assistant to the deputy in Emile Beauvais. If Matt Gaetz gets lopped off, either voluntarily or involuntarily, I could easily see Todd Blanche being elevated to the attorney general position and everybody move up one notch. They will get confirmed. But now you have where Donald Trump is telling the world that he's against the weaponization of the Department of Justice. What you have now is the jailed have now become the jailers, and they've put the jailers in jail because all the criminal defense lawyers who were battling it out with the Department of Justice as criminal defense lawyers are now the prosecutors against the Department of Justice and the FBI. I don't take for a minute with a grain of sand or salt Alina Habba yesterday, because she speaks she speaks Donald Trump's id. She says things out loud that he thinks, which is, we're coming after you, Jack Smith. Your resignation, you can resign, but you can't hide. We're coming after you. I mean, he already has round-the-clock security protection for good reason. And for her to kind of amp it up, and for people to think they're going to turn the page and we're going to be a unified country, his first thing is to put his criminal defense lawyers in all the prosecutor seats and all the top Department of Justice seats. And what do you think they're going to do about it? It's going to be MAGA hearings left and right, investigating the people that left the last administration, all the way up to Joe Biden. And then it's going to be these people opening up investigations against their political rivals. with a solicitor general who believes that giving out an assassination order, a murderous president, is immune. That's a problem. But what I'm hoping is that he's so extreme in his positions, Sauer, that it will turn off, as I said, the Amy Coney Barretts of the world, hoping to get her over to our position. If we don't aim for her in every argument, we have no chance of getting things in our favor 5-4 throughout the next 4 years or so. So that's just got to be, I'd love to change the dealer, but sometimes you just got to play the cards that you're dealt. And these are the cards that were dealt. This is the group that will get confirmed. The group that won't get, especially if we take to the streets, so to speak, call your senator. People are always like, what can we do, Popok? You got 2 senators in every state. Call them now and oppose Hegseth, Gabbard, RFK Jr., and Gaetz for all different reasons, from being even put up for nomination, let alone confirmed.
You talk about the cards that you're dealt right now. Just so everybody knows, the Supreme Court, the legal AFers know this, but for those just joining, there's 9 Supreme Court justices. 6 have been appointed by Republican administrations. 1 was a George H.W. Bush appointee, Clarence Thomas. You have the other 2 were George W. Bush appointees, Justice Alito and John Roberts. 3 Republican appointees were appointed by Donald Trump. That's Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, and Brett Kavanaugh. So that gives you your 6 right-wing justices. You have 3 Democratic appointees, 2 by former President Barack Obama. That's Justice Sotomayor and Justice Kagan. Then you have Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who was appointed by President Biden. So that gives you your 6-3. In terms of what Popok was saying right there, Amy Coney Barrett's she was a Notre Dame law professor, didn't really have all that much experience as a trial lawyer, but her big issue was overturning Roe v. Wade. That's what she wrote about. Her life's mission was get Roe v. Wade overturned, right? So she did that. She achieved that. On other issues, if you can get past that, she's more of a moderating voice, still right wing, but a more moderating voice on some of the other issues. And so is John Roberts on some of the other issues. So in terms of a litigator or as an advocate before the Supreme Court, as Popok says, if you are structuring your arguments, you're never going to get a 6-3. That just ain't happening because Clarence Thomas and Kavanaugh and Alito, they're never going with you. Gorsuch is almost never going to you. The 5-4 that the best you can get is bring Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett on your side. So just so people know the dynamic of what you kind of have to argue. And I think what we're going to start to see those 5-4s to look like on the most extreme excesses. We got to take our last quick break. When we get back, Popok, I want you to go over quickly the status of the various cases, where we're at in the various Trump-related cases. I want you to talk through that. Perhaps even start with Giuliani, what's going on there as his watches are now being confiscated and sold, which it gives me a little bit of joy right now. And Steve Bannon's criminal case in New York, which he's been trying to derail. Then I want to talk briefly about a case that I'm sure nobody's ever heard of, but I think is incredibly important with massive implications, but it should be talked about, so we're going to use our platform to talk about it. We'll be right back after our last quick break of the show.
Lumen is the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath. And on the app, it lets you know if you're burning fat or carbs and gives you tailored advice to improve your nutrition, workouts, sleep, and even stress management. All you have to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning, and you'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs. Then, Lumen gives you a personalized nutrition plan for that day based on your measurements. You can also breathe into it before and after workouts and meals, so you know exactly what's going on in your body in real time. And Lumen will give you tips to keep you on top of your health game, because your metabolism is at the center of everything your body does. Optimal metabolic health translates to a bunch of benefits, including easier weight management, improved energy levels, better fitness results, better sleep, etc. It can also track your cycle and adjust your recommendations to keep your metabolism healthy through hormonal shifts, so you can keep up your energy and stave off cravings. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/legalaf to get 15% off your Lumen. That's LUMEN.me/legalaf for 15% off your purchase. Thank you, Lumen, for sponsoring this episode. Proper sleep can increase focus, boost energy, and improve your mood. Introducing Beam's Dream Powder, a science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep. If you know me, you know that Dream has been a game changer for my sleep, and boy, do I need sleep these days. I drink Beam's Dream Powder each night in order to get my optimal sleep. And I gotta say, I wouldn't be recommending this if it didn't actually help me. And today, my listeners get a special discount on Beam's Dream Powder. Their science-backed healthy hot cocoa for sleep with no added sugar. Better sleep has never tasted better. Now available in delicious flavors like chocolate peanut butter, cinnamon cocoa, and sea salt caramel, with only 15 calories and 0 grams of sugar. Other sleep aids can cause next-day grogginess, but Dream contains a powerful all-natural blend of reishi, magnesium, L-theanine, melatonin, and nano CBD to help you fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up refreshed. The numbers don't lie. In a clinical study, 93% of participants reported Dream helped them get better sleep Beam Dream is easy to add to your nighttime routine. Just mix Dream into hot water or milk froth and enjoy before bed. Find out why Forbes and the New York Times are all talking about Beam and why it's trusted by the world's top athletes and business professionals. If you want to try Beam's best-selling Dream Powder, get up to 40% off for a limited time when you go to shopbeam.com/legalaf and use code LegalAF at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/legalaf and use code LegalAF for up to 40% off. Fall needs its own wardrobe full of comfortable and coordinating pieces for a layered look with perspective. You need warmth that's still extra breathable. Starchy, stiff workwear is not optimal when you need to endure your busiest, most important days. With Roan's Commuter Collection, your clothing looks professional, performs like activewear, and feels like total comfort. Seasons change. We change. It's time men's closets change, too. Roan's Commuter Collection is the most comfortable, breathable, and truly versatile set of products known to man. Roan has premium pieces to elevate every occasion. We're talking about the world's most comfortable pants, dress shirts, quarter zips, polos, and blazers, all boosted with functional performance properties. Roan's signature technical fabrics stretch in every direction, breathe, fight odor and the elements, and effortlessly work everywhere so you can stay calm and collected even when life takes unexpected turns. It's time for unparalleled confidence without all the hassle. Each piece in Roan's Commuter Collection is made to coordinate and layer for an instantly elevated look. The collection also features wrinkle release technology and is 100% machine washable. Looking good is that easy. Look, I love the Commuter Collection, and I use some of those pieces from it almost every day as I dress for the podcast, the videos, or meetings with clients. The fit of the shirts and ease to maintain is unparalleled and makes my getting dressed for success in the morning a no-brainer. Changing seasons is the optimal time for new beginnings. The Commuter Collection's premium look and adaptable design is the best way to move through the fall. Roan makes it easy with machine washability and collars that maintain their shape for life. Commuter Collection can get you through any workday and straight into whatever comes next. Head to roan.com/legalaf and use promo code LegalAF to save 20% off your entire order. That's 20% off your entire order when you head to RHONE.com/legalaf and use code LegalAF. It's time to embody your most confident self.
Welcome back to Legal AF. Let me toss it to you, Michael Popok, who's also the host of the Legal AF YouTube channel. Michael Popok leads the Legal AF YouTube channel. Make sure everybody subscribes to that Legal AF YouTube channel. It is, to say it was a rocket ship, it's a real rocket ship. You know, Michael Popok, when I first started the Midas Touch Network, when I had about 200 or so followers and subscribers, Michael Popok called me up and said, Ben, what you are building is an absolute rocket ship. Now, at that time, when we would do the lives together, there was 3 people, maybe 5 people, sometimes 7. Most of them would be family members and an occasional friend or 2 of mine. And when we would hit 10 people watching the show, Michael Popok and I would call each other after, and we would be so joyous and so happy. And when we got 50 people, it was the greatest day. And I remember having dinner with you when we were both practicing law in downtown LA. And I think we were getting maybe up to 100 people watching, and the smiles that we had knowing that 100 people were consuming this information. So just so everybody knows out there, and I guess the broader point is this, you can do it too. And there wasn't a magic formula other than just continuing to speak out every day, tell the truth, do our best, present these facts. And in these trying times, this is where leaders are born. This is where leaders are made. This is where leaders show their stuff. And Michael Popok, a big leader in the pro-democracy community, that Legal AF YouTube channel is crushing it. Make sure you all subscribe. So Popok, give us the quick overview of all of these cases, including Bannon and Giuliani. And then I want to chat about this federal case that no one's really talking about. I think it's very important.
Appreciate the toss over. We started from the bottom and now we're here. So let's talk, speaking of bottom, let's start with Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon has a state court prosecution by, yes, the Manhattan DA, which is the same organization that successfully prosecuted Donald Trump for the 34 felony counts and his prior companies for 19 tax evasion tax fraud counts. That same Manhattan DA's office is got a trial scheduled to go forward on the 9th of December. They're going to be back in court on Monday for Bannon. Bannon's trying to delay things, arguing that he got a late turnover of some evidence. The judge says she's not inclined to stop the trial from going forward on December the 9th. This is all about the Build the Wall phony foundation that people are already sitting in jail over in federal prosecutions for which they were not given a pardon, including Bannon's a partner and co-founder, because they didn't build the wall. They built their bank accounts with the money that they took from people, saying that 100% of the money would go to building the wall, and it never did. So that's called fraud and money laundering and other wire fraud, other crimes in New York, garden variety crimes for which you can't get a pardon. It's a state court matter, and the governor of the state of New York is not going to pardon you either, Bannon, because she's a Democrat and almost always is. And so he's going to trial. Whether on Monday there's a hearing, I'll do a follow-up on the Legal AF channel that we just talked about, whether there's a short delay to allow for some evidence to be transmitted over to the defense. I doubt there's going to be a delay. I think we're going to start a trial on the 9th of December. He's looking at like 8 to 10 years in jail, minimum of 5. And so while it was sort of a badge of honor to go in for 4 months for contempt of Congress and, you know, get on the payphone with his dime every week to do his podcast and then get out in time for the in time for the vote, you know, voting, although I'm not sure he can vote. This is different. This is 5 years in a not pleasant place in the New York State prison system, starting probably on Rikers Island, which is a notoriously terrible place. And there's nothing that Donald Trump can do about it. I'm going to talk about things that he's going to do in the city of New York and people that may be benefited in a minute, including Mayor Adams. I'll leave that for a second. But Matt Bannon is effed, legal AF'd. And that trial is starting, and he can whine all about it on all of his podcasts and all of that. That's that. Giuliani whines is also. His 2 days ago, I reported on the Legal AF YouTube channel that his lawyers fired him without telling him in the matter involving the $150 million civil fraud judgment that is in the hands of Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, the mother-daughter team, who were horribly defamed and doxxed and violently attacked, at least verbally, because Rudy Giuliani ran a fake video showing them committing voter fraud and counting when they weren't. They didn't. And they've had a $150 million judgment running with interest, substantial federal interest, for the last almost 2 years. Finally, the end of the road has been here. It's here now with Judge Lyman in the Southern District, the federal court in New York. And he's ordered Rudy Giuliani to turn it all over. Even Rudy Giuliani says it'll leave him penniless and homeless. We can only hope. His 2 major assets, an apartment in New York that has already been turned over to Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss's lawyers. Shout out to Wilkie Farr and Gallagher, the lawyers that are doing the case for free. They're not taking any money for this. Just democracy and injustice. And so they got the keys to that $5 or $6 million place on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. And there's a fight brewing about whether Rudy Giuliani is a phony resident of Florida or not. If he's a resident of Florida at the right time, he may be able to put a fence around his Palm Beach condo near Mar-a-Lago under a unique set of laws in Florida. It's where all the deadbeats that owe a lot of money go to protect their homes, because there's a homestead law that's been on the books in Florida for a long, long time.'t all turns on when he was a resident or not. And the judge said, I got a good day for that. Let's do it on Inauguration Day. So after Rudy Giuliani's lawyers quit him 2 days ago, citing not that they weren't getting paid, citing that Rudy wanted them to take unethical positions in court and he was not listening to their advice, and they couldn't take it anymore. And then a whole section that was blacked out which I'm sure was them saying the unethical and illegal positions that Rudy Giuliani wanted them to take. Well, lo and behold, he found a lawyer to take some positions, a Staten Island personal injury lawyer who used to represent, get this, for those that are about my age, Paula Jones against Bill Clinton in the 1990s. That was his major claim to fame. So he wrote a typo-riddled letter, where things got typoed, like instead of seize, like seize a property, it became ceased, like cease to exist, and other problems in the letter. He wrote it to the judge, obviously not constrained by certain meritless positions, saying that all of he said firsthand, they've turned over the watches, the grandfather's watch, the ring, the 1980 Mercedes that Lauren Bacall used to own, they've turned, and money, but they want it all back. They said, no, Florida constitutional law applies, and he gets to keep the car because it's a junker and it's worth less than $5,500, and he gets to keep a computer and a cell phone and a pot and a pan and whatever. So they're trying to have the judge reconsider orders that he's already made with the prior counsel. And while they're at it, why not? Rudy wants to go to the inauguration, and the hearing will interfere about the Palm Beach County property. So won't you postpone that, please? So we're going to get a ruling. That happened Friday night. We're going to get a ruling by Monday or so by Judge Lyman, who moves pretty quickly on these things. I think maybe he gives him an extra couple of days for the hearing, but I'm not sure. And certainly he'll probably deny as a motion for reconsideration the return of these other items. The judge is yet to rule on the Palm Beach County property, which is worth $3 to $4 million. It's like half of his assets, until he has this full hearing. But he has given another order that property is not to be sold in the meantime, with a restraining order on it, until the judge gets around to making the ultimate ruling. But as of right now, at least on the Ruby Freeman Shea Moss side of the ledger, they've got about, I would give it $5.5 million collected. And then once they are done wiping out Rudy of all of his assets, then they go after his future income or current income with writs of garnishment to get any of the podcast money or this book that he's writing for HarperCollins or whatever. They're entitled to that too until it's all paid off. On the Trump side, the cases are going to wrap. We've got the Mershon case on sentencing. The lawyers there for the prosecutor's office, the same Manhattan DA, have asked until the 19th of November, so next week, to tell the judge what they want to do with sentencing, given the election results. We can only speculate that they're going to probably take the position that the sentencing should be pushed off. And even if they don't, it's going to go up on appeal. He's not going to get sentenced in 2025 regardless, and he's not going to be sent to jail while a sitting president. So just to manage expectations there. But we'll know more on the 19th of November when that's filed. On the 2nd of December, we're going to get a filing similarly by Jack Smith in the DC election interference case, in which he's going to tell Judge Chutkan what they should do with the case. The reality is Jack Smith's going to dismiss these cases. It's already publicly known that he's told his staff to go find other jobs. He's working on his report. The report is what matters now. He's going to turn over 2 reports, one on Mar-a-Lago and one on the DC election interference case, to Merrick Garland, who's already said, at least in the past, that he's going to publicly release them. He has to publicly release them, because if he doesn't, he can't leave it to Matt Gaetz or the next attorney general to do it. We'll never see these reports. So I think he owes it to the American people, for many, many reasons that we don't need to go over here, about Merrick Garland's slightly uneven stint as Attorney General. I'll just leave it at that. But I think we'll get those reports. We'll get them before the new Congress comes in on Jan 3. That's my prediction on that. And that sort of is a wrap between, and we already reported at midweek that Mark Meadows' attempts to get out from under his state prosecution is going to fail. He's not going to get it to federal court because the Supreme Court says so. One last comment. We talked about the people that have been nominated. One of them we didn't touch on yet, I want to just touch on briefly here, is Jay Clayton for the highest federal prosecutor position in New York, the Southern District of New York, Manhattan a U.S. attorney. It used to be the job that Rudy Giuliani had. Jay Clayton is, how do I put this nicely, a meat puppet for Donald Trump, golf buddy of Donald Trump and others in his inner circle, served as sort of the feckless Securities and Exchange Commission chairman in the first administration. He is being put there as a friendly prosecutor in Donald Trump's hometown of Manhattan, so he doesn't have to worry about the next 4 years being any of his friends or others being prosecuted by that office. And I also see that after he replaces Breon Peace in the Eastern District of New York, so the whole of New York now covered, that they are going to dismiss their indictments and prosecutions of Mayor Adams. And that'll be something Donald Trump will then have Mayor Adams in his back pocket forevermore, because that case is either he's going to get pardoned and or he's going to force Jay Clayton and others to dismiss the Mayor Adams corruption indictment related to him taking money and bribes from foreign powers, because who else would give him that benefit than a president who also obtained hundreds of millions of dollars, he and his family, from foreign governments.
Michael Popok, that was a very thorough and detailed summary. I want to briefly talk about a case that is probably not in the news, that you've never heard of. It's called Texas versus Department of Labor. Everybody hear of it? Nope, but you probably should, because while corporate media was focusing on all of Donald Trump's stunts and scams throughout the election and attacking President Biden's handling of the economy when President Biden got us out of the mess that Donald Trump thrust us into with his mishandling of COVID. Oh, and by the way, take a look at those headlines in 2019 when there was a manufacturing recession before COVID hit. I know we wave that Men in Black wand and have this collective COVID amnesia where we pretend that things were great when Trump was in office, when they were absolutely a disaster. But surprise, surprise, now economists are saying with all the havoc and chaos Donald Trump is causing, there is a 75% chance right now of a recession. And the stock market was down last week, not liking Donald Trump's chaos. But Michael Popok, I digress. President Biden's been the most pro-labor president in American history. So in keeping with that tradition, he proposed a rule. And the rule said that if you made under $58,656, you're automatically entitled to overtime pay. About 4 to 6 million Americans, therefore, would receive overtime pay under this rule, because what corporations have been doing is saying certain people, they're exempt employees because they fit this exempt criteria. Therefore, we don't have to pay them overtime. And of course, the labor can challenge that status of exempt versus non-exempt. But guess what? When you have a National Labor Relations Board controlled by management and not pro-workers, let's see if you're ever going to get a pro-labor ruling in your favor. And trust me, the National Labor Relations Board under Donald Trump's going to be as anti-worker as it comes. Are you listening, Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, who tried to both sides of this and went to Mar-a-Lago, wore the red tie, kissed the ring, and gave the thumbs up as he screwed over his Teamsters workers and Teamsters union? Well, Biden put forward this rule giving 4 million Americans overtime pay. But guess what? Donald Trump-backed groups and the Republican governor of Texas, they filed a lawsuit. Judge Shop found a Trump-appointed judge by the name of Sean D. Jordan in the Eastern District of Texas, who on Friday issued a nationwide injunction in favor of Texas, in favor of these Trump-backed business groups, blocking the overtime pay for about 4 million Americans who would have got the overtime pay that they deserve. Where are the headlines? Where's the outrage? I know there's lots of attacks on Biden, this, that, and the other, but 4 million Americans just got denied overtime that they otherwise would have been entitled to. Now, I focus on this instance right here, but I could focus on probably hundreds of other pro-labor policies that Trump-appointed judge have blocked of Biden. And I understand that our civics has been so utterly destroyed in our education system, which, by the way, is why Donald Trump wants to abolish the Department of Education, because the uneducated love me, the uneducated love me. But when you actually take a look at what's taking place here, you will see that when Biden's tried to help workers, the Trump administration, concomitantly based on their legacy judges, have blocked this at each and every step. And so why do I bring this up at the end? I bring this up because knowledge is power. And now that our platform here is bigger than the corporate media, we need to share. We need to lead by example, and we need to talk about the fact that 4 to 6 million Americans who should be getting overtime pay are not getting overtime pay because the 1%, the big oligarchical business interests who are laughing in your faces right now because they're going to get the biggest gifts ever and gigantic tax cuts. Well, by the way, you're going to get screwed on your taxes. You are. You think you're going to get a Trump tax cut? Good freaking luck with that. You're going to get the bloody mass deportations. Your taxes are going to go higher while the oligarchs get richer and laugh in your freaking faces. I bring this up again not to discourage us, but let's know the reality, and let's also know how we message these things. Like I just did, clear-eyed, clearly stated, and I'm not making this stuff up. This is just the truth, the hard truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me. That's what's going on. So Michael Popok, I talk about that case. I thought it was important to mention that. We're going to keep fighting every day here at Legal AF. This is the place where you should come if you want the facts. The cold, hard facts, the truth, the evidence, it's all going to be right here. The other place you go to, of course, right now, the main home for everything Legal AF is the Legal AF YouTube channel hosted by Michael Popok, where the intersection of law and politics is discussed, described, dissected. Every time I look, there's like another 100,000 subscribers on that channel. So Popok, great work building that network out there. Really great stuff. I'll let you give the final word, and then we got
I'll just pick up where you left off on Eastern District of Texas guy. We have to do that is a role model, a blueprint of how we're going to do jujitsu against the future Trump administration. That's why, as I said at the top of this, the attorney generals in at least 17 states that are completely controlled by Democrats are already, for the last year, have been tabletop exercising what they're going to do and how they're going to do it against Donald Trump to pin him down and make him as quickly lame duck as possible and try to contain the damage, at least as we get to the midterms, hopefully for a crushing defeat. I mean, history tells us if history doesn't repeat, it at least rhymes, to paraphrase Mark Twain. And almost no president, and that includes Barack Obama, who came in with the trifecta of both chambers of Congress and the presidency, retained it at the midterm. And so I know Donald Trump is great at setting history, new history, but that seems to be the way this is going to go. And if we're right about that, then we go into court seeking nationwide injunctions in friendly federal circuit and trial and appellate courts, just the way they did, citing, well, the executive order goes beyond the administrative procedures law and the way that you pass laws, and it wasn't done properly. And so, you know, all of these crazy immigration policies that he's about to do, or attempts to remove all of the this is my major problem I'm going to leave this point on. Most of what we're expecting Donald Trump to do is going to leave America weaker, our national security in tatters. Anybody think that the entirety of the attorney of the Department of Justice retiring early because they don't want to serve under a Attorney General Matt Gaetz, they all take early retirement? Same thing in the FBI. Same thing in our intelligence community, which keeps us safe every day because they don't want to be under a potential Russian asset in Tulsi Gabbard. Does anybody think that's a good thing? Or all the 3- and 4-star generals saying early retirement time, I don't want to be under this junior officer who just got elevated to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff because he passed the loyalty test for Donald Trump. Everything I'm talking about is not just about vengeance and loyalty. It's about it making our country worse off and more insecure to feed Donald Trump's ego. And so we got to take pages out of his playbook. Fortunately for all of us, he was not quiet about what executive orders he's going to do and what playbook he's going to follow. We have the playbook. We have the opposing team's playbook in Project 2025. And I assure you, the lawsuits in those 17 states with those attorney generals enforcing the new robust states' rights that the Republicans have always been bleating about. Great. States' rights, attorney generals are going to lead the charge along with public interest groups and our community on Legal AF and MISSTEPS Network to pin Donald Trump back with all of these lawsuits are going to be filed. And we're going to be referring to precedents like this one by Judge whatever his name is in the Eastern District of Texas to use to our advantage to cut down Donald Trump's programs. They spent all of their efforts, the Republicans, trying to gum up the works with Joe Biden, who was just trying to make American life better, not worse than he found it. With overtime pay, who's benefited by that? The worker, the person who's buying the eggs and the gas. That was a plus for them. Student loan relief, that was a plus for them, but not to the, having just elected the first oligarch in chief, letting in all the other billionaires and trillionaires or wannabes into the government. Who do you think is going to be made worse off? The American people who don't happen to play golf at Mar-a-Lago. So
well said, Michael Popok. And look, when you go talk about no tax on tips, for example, the media love that. Catchy. No tax on tips sounds great. Well, you take a look back at what the actual policy was in Trump administration #1, and we actually talk about the reality. The issue was there was no tips. The rule that was passed there by that Department of Labor under the Trump administration is that the tips of workers belongs to their bosses. And it was a Democratic provision in an omnibus bill that blocked that from becoming a reality. So when you put 1 + 1 together and you want to get 2, if you think about the Trump policy that tips are owned by workers, and then you say no tax on tips as a concept, wouldn't you think that maybe this is another tax avoidance scheme for billionaires to claim the tips of their workers as their own and then deduct that from their taxes? Ding, 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 ding. How about we talk about the reality? How about we talk about facts? That's what we're going to do every day on Legal AF here and after. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Legal AF YouTube channel. We love you. We're grateful for you, and have a wonderful rest of your weekend. We got this.